The morning sun rose over New Eden like it had for the past 15 years. Governor Hyunwoo Park stood on his office balcony, watching the golden light spread across the green fields below. The sight never got old. What used to be dead rock and dust was now a world full of life. Hyunwoo smiled as he saw farmers already working in the fields. Dong Hyun-yoon was probably out there somewhere, checking on the wheat crops. The old farmer had magic hands when it came to growing things. Thanks to him and others like him, New Eden could feed itself and still have enough left over to help other colonies. "Governor, the morning meeting is ready," came a voice behind him. Hyunwoo turned to see his assistant holding a cup of coffee. Real coffee, grown right here on New Eden. Another small victory against the cold universe. "Thank you, Min-jung. I'll be right there." The meeting room was full of familiar faces. Dr. So-young Kim sat at her usual spot, her medical report spread out in front of her. She looked tired, but happy. As the colony's chief doctor, she worked long hours, but she loved her job. Next to her sat engineer Tae-min Lee, the young man who kept all their machines running. His latest project was a new water system that would help them grow even more food. Teacher Ji-hye Choi was there too, with her usual bright smile. She ran the schools where human children learned alongside the few friendly alien species they had met. The kids were the future of New Eden, and Ji-hye made sure they knew both their Earth history and their new world's ways. "Good morning, everyone," Hyunwoo said as he sat down. "Let's hear the reports." Dr. Kim spoke first. "The health numbers look great. No major diseases and the birth rate is steady. I've been studying how our presence here affects the local animals and plants. It's amazing. We're not hurting this world. We're making it better." Tae-min nodded. "The new water system is almost ready. When it's done, we can expand the farming area by 30%. The fusion generators are running perfectly, and I've designed some improvements that will make them even better." Ji-hye's report was the best part. "The children are doing wonderful. We have 500 kids in school now, from age 5 to 18. They're learning fast, and they love this world. Some of the older ones want to become farmers like Dong Hyun. Others want to be doctors like Dr. Kim. They're proud to be from New Eden." Hyunwoo felt warm inside hearing these reports. This was what they had worked for. A place where humans could live in peace, grow food, raise families, and build something good. New Eden wasn't just a colony anymore. It was home. "Any problems?" he asked. "Nothing serious," Tae-min said. "Some equipment needs replacing, but that's normal. The supply ship from Earth is coming next month." Dr. Kim looked thoughtful. "I've been wondering about defense. We don't have much protection here. Just the orbital stations and a few security guards." Hyunwoo nodded. "I know, but we've never needed more. We're far from the main space routes. No one bothers us out here. The galaxy is big enough for everyone." That was the human way, he thought. Find empty space, build something good, and live in peace. They had met a few alien species over the years. Most were friendly, or at least not hostile. The universe seemed like a place where different species could get along. After the meeting, Hyunwoo walked through the town center. Children played in the parks while their parents worked or shopped. The air smelled like growing things and fresh bread. People waved and called out greetings. This was what happiness looked like. He stopped by the school where Ji-hye was teaching, a class about Earth history. The children listened with wide eyes as she told them about the old blue planet where their grandparents had lived. "Why did they leave Earth?" asked a little girl named Sujin. "To find new places to live," Ji-hye explained. "To build new homes among the stars, places like New Eden." "I'm glad they did," said a boy named Jae-won. "I like it here." Hyunwoo smiled and moved on. He visited the farms where Dong Hyun was showing younger farmers how to plant the new season's crops. The old man's face was weathered from years under, different suns. But his eyes were bright with purpose. "This world likes us," Dong Hyun said to Hyunwoo. "The soil wants to grow things. The weather is good. We're lucky to be here." "We made our own luck," Hyunwoo replied. "With hard work and good planning." "Maybe," Dong Hyun said with a grin. "But luck helps too." The day passed peacefully, like all the days on New Eden. Families had dinner together. Students did their homework. Night shift workers took over the important jobs. The orbital stations kept watch over their quiet world, seeing nothing but empty space and distant stars. Hyun-woo was in his office finishing the day's paperwork when the alarm started. Screaming, the sound cut through the peaceful night like a knife. Red lights flashed on his walls. His communication system came alive with panicked voices. "Governor, unknown ships in the system! Massive contacts, at least 100 ships! They're not responding to our signals!" Hyun-woo ran to the window and looked up at the night sky. He could see lights moving between the stars. Ships. Big ones. His communicator buzzed. It was Commander Hyejin from the orbital station. "Governor, we have a problem. These ships, they're huge, and they're not human. They're not any species we know." "Are they hostile?" Hyun-woo asked, though he already feared the answer. "They're charging weapons." The first blast lit up the sky like a second sun. One of the orbital stations simply disappeared in a ball of fire. Then another. The aliens were destroying everything that could fight back. Hyun-woo grabbed his emergency communicator, the one that could send messages all the way to Earth. His hands shook as he typed. "This is Governor Hyun-woo Park of New Eden Colony. We are under attack by unknown alien forces. They are destroying our defenses. We have 50,000 civilians here, including children. Please remember us. Remember what they took from us." Sent the message just as the first alien ships entered the atmosphere. They were dark and angular, like moving pieces of night. Energy beams lanced down from their bellies, turning buildings into fire and ash. Hyun-woo ran from his office, heading for the emergency shelters. But deep down, he knew it was too late. These aliens weren't here to conquer. They were here to destroy. All around him, the peaceful world of New Eden began to die. The farms burned. The schools crumbled. The happy families screamed and ran. But there was nowhere to hide from the death that fell from the sky. The aliens were thorough. They made sure nothing survived. No buildings, no people, no trace that humans had ever turned this dead rock into a garden. In 6 hours, it was over. New Eden was silent again, but now it was the silence of death, not peace. 50,000 human lives were gone, along with 15 years of hope and hard work. The alien ships departed as quickly as they had come, leaving behind only empty space and a dead world. They had sent a message without words. Humans were weak, and the weak deserved to die. But they had made one mistake. Hyun-woo's final message had reached Earth, and Earth would not forget. Admiral Woo-jin Kang stood in the command center of Solar Defense Headquarters, staring at a screen that showed nothing but empty space where New Eden should be sending signals. For 3 weeks, there had been silence from the colony. Complete silence. "Still nothing?" he asked. "Intelligence Director Young-mi Han?" Young-mi shook her head. "Not a single transmission. No emergency beacons, no automated systems, nothing. It's like the whole colony just stopped existing." Woo-jin felt cold inside. In 30 years of military service, he had learned to trust his instincts. And his instincts were screaming that something terrible had happened. "Send Captain Song and his ship to investigate," he ordered. "Full speed." "Yes, sir." Captain Do-Hyun Song received his orders while his ship, the Soul's Pride, was docked at Mars Station. He was a careful man, known for following procedures and bringing his crew home, safe. But as he read the mission details, he felt worry growing in his stomach. "Prep the ship for immediate departure," he told his crew. "We're going to New Eden." "What's the emergency, Captain?" asked his second-in-command. "We don't know yet. That's the problem." The Soul's Pride was fast, but space was big. Even at maximum speed, it took 2 weeks to reach the New Eden system. During the journey, Captain Song tried to contact the colony every day. He got no response. When they finally arrived, Song felt his heart sink. The orbital stations that should have challenged his ship were gone, just pieces of metal floating in space. He ordered a full sensor sweep of the planet below. "Captain," his sensor operator said in a quiet voice, "you need to see this." The main screen showed New Eden from orbit. Where green fields and cities had been, there were only black scars and melted glass. Nothing moved, nothing lived. "Take us down," Song ordered. They landed near where the capital city had been. Song put on his protective suit and walked out onto the surface of what had been humanity's most successful colony. The ground was covered in ash. The air smelled like burnt metal and death. He found melted remains of buildings, twisted pieces, of farming equipment, and worse things that he tried not to look at too closely. In the ruins of what had been Governor Park's office, he found a burnt computer that still held some data. "Get everything we can from this," he told his technical team. "I want to know what happened here." The ship's computer analyzed the weapon residue and energy signatures left behind. After hours of work, it gave them an answer that made Song's blood turn cold. "Vorthak," the computer announced. "Weapon signatures match Vorthak hegemony energy. Weapons." Song had heard of the Vorthak. Every human had, though few took them seriously. They were an alien empire that considered themselves the superior species in the galaxy. Most humans thought they were just arrogant bullies who picked on weak civilizations. Now Song realized they were much worse than bullies. They were murderers. He sent his findings back to Earth immediately. Admiral Kang received the report in his office, along with pictures and video from the dead world. He sat in silence for a long time, looking at images of melted cities and empty fields. Director Han brought him more information an hour later. "I've had my people research the Vorthak hegemony," she said. "It's worse than we thought. They've done this before, 17 times in the past 1,000 years. 17 entire civilizations wiped out. The Vorthak call it cleansing inferior species. They believe that any race capable of terraforming planets is a threat to their expansion." Wu Jin felt sick. "So they killed 50,000 innocent people because we're good at growing food?" "It's their philosophy. They think the strong should rule and the weak should die. Since New Eden had no military defenses, they decided humans were weak." Dr. Bo-Ra Nam, the Earth government's expert on alien cultures, arrived that evening with more bad news. "The Vorthak only respect overwhelming force," she explained to the emergency council meeting. "In their culture, mercy is weakness, and peace is an invitation to attack. They judged humanity based on New Eden's lack of weapons." President Minho Shin listened to all the reports with growing anger. He was a peaceful man who had spent his life trying to build bridges between different species. But this was different. This was genocide. "What do they expect us to do?" he asked. "Just sit here and let them murder our people?" "They expect us to be afraid," Dr. Nam replied. "They think one attack will make humans too scared to expand into space." "They're wrong," the president said quietly. The emergency session of the Global Defense Council lasted 3 days. Representatives from every nation on Earth, every colony in space, and every human settlement debated what to do. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to hide. But most wanted something else. They wanted justice. Admiral Kang presented his plan to the council. "Operation Righteous Fury. We build the largest military force in human history. We find the Vorthak, and we make sure they never hurt another innocent person again." "How large a force?" asked the representative from the European Union. "Every ship we can build, every person who can fight, everything we have." "That could take years. Then we'll take years. The people of New Eden deserve justice, and the galaxy needs to know that humans are not easy prey." President Shin called for a vote. It wasn't close. By a margin of 3-1, humanity chose war. That night, Wu Jin stood in his office looking out at the lights of Earth's cities. 12 billion people lived on this world, and billions more on other human planets. They were farmers and teachers and engineers and doctors. They were peaceful people who just wanted to live their lives and raise their children. But the Vorthak had made a terrible mistake. They thought peace meant weakness. They thought mercy meant cowardice. They had attacked humanity's children, and now they would learn what humans were really capable of when someone threatened their family. Director Han joined him at the window. "Do you think we can do it?" she asked. "Build a force large enough to fight an entire empire?" Wu Jin thought about the pictures from New Eden, the melted playground where human children had played, the burnt school where they had learned about Earth, the ash that had once been families with hopes and dreams. "We're about to find out," he said. "But I'll tell you this. Those alien bastards picked the wrong species to mess with." Across the Earth, the word was already spreading. Factory workers and farmers, soldiers and scientists all heard the same message. New Eden was gone, but it would not be forgotten. Humanity was going to war, and this time they would make sure the galaxy remembered why you should never hurt human children. The Vorthak thought they had destroyed a weak colony. Instead, they had awakened something that would change the galaxy forever. War was coming, and it would be unlike anything the universe had ever seen. Fleet Admiral Sujin Park had never wanted to be a soldier. She had joined the Space Navy to explore new worlds and meet alien species. She had dreamed of peace among the stars, but when she learned that her brother Hyun-woo and his entire colony had been murdered, peace was the last thing on her mind. Now she stood in the largest shipyard humanity had ever built, watching thousands of workers put together the tools of war. Sparks flew as metal was welded. Giant cranes moved hull sections into place. The sound of construction never stopped, day or night. "How many ships completed today?" she asked Foreman Changmin Ryu. 47, he replied, wiping sweat from his face. "We're getting faster. The workers know what they're building and why." Sujin nodded. Every person in the shipyard had volunteered for this job. They worked 18-hour shifts because they wanted to. They knew that somewhere out there, the aliens who had killed New Eden were still alive and still dangerous. "The new designs are working well," said engineer Kyung-ho Lim as he joined them. He looked tired but proud. "The Fury-class battleships are everything we hoped for. Each one can take on 5 normal ships and win." Sujin looked at the nearest, completed ship. It was 2 kilometers long, covered in armor and weapons. It looked like a metal shark built for killing. She felt sad that humans had to build such things, but glad that they could. "What about the crews?" she asked. "Training is going well," Colonel Haewon Choi replied. She had just arrived from the training center on Mars. "We have 50 million people in military training now. More volunteers arrive every day." Sujin was amazed by the response. When President Shin had announced the war effort, people had lined up to join. Farmers left their fields, teachers left their schools, engineers left their comfortable jobs. They all wanted to be part of the force that would make the Vorthak pay for New Eden. "Any problems with the different groups working together?" Sujin asked. "None," Haewon said with a smile. "It doesn't matter if someone is from Korea or Brazil or Nigeria. They all have the same goal: make sure no one ever hurts human children again." The training centers were something to see. Sujin visited the main facility on Mars, where 1 million new soldiers learned how to fight in space. The instructors taught them not just how to use weapons, but how to work together. Human strength was not in individual fighting, but in cooperation. "Watch this," Haewon said, pointing to a group of trainees. "Attack Formation 7. The soldiers moved like they were dancing. Each person knew exactly where to go and what to do. They covered each other, supported each other, and struck as one unit. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The Vorthak fight as individuals," Haewon explained. "Each warrior tries to prove he's the strongest, but humans fight as a team. We're stronger together." Meanwhile, diplomat Joon-gi Bae was working on a different kind of war preparation. He traveled to other worlds, meeting with alien species that had also suffered from Vorthak attacks. On the Kalari homeworld, he met with their leaders. The Kalari were a peaceful species, like humans had been. The Vorthak had attacked one of their colonies 5 years ago. "We are glad humans are finally standing up to them," said Kalari Prime Minister Vel Thari. "But are you sure you can win? The Vorthak are very strong." "We'll find out," Joon-gi replied. "But we can't let them keep murdering innocent people." The Kalari agreed to share intelligence about Vorthak movements and technology. So did the Tzeentch Collective and several other species. The aliens were amazed by how quickly humans were building their war machine. "Your people work very fast," observed Tzeentch Ambassador Rixmal. "Most species take decades to build such a fleet." "Most species haven't had their children murdered," Joon-gi replied. Back in the Sol system, the transformation was incredible. Every asteroid was being mined for metal. Every factory was making either ships or weapons or equipment. The orbital shipyards around Earth, Mars, and Jupiter worked around the clock. Sujin often flew between the different facilities, checking on progress. At the Jupiter yards, she found Engineer Lim testing a new weapon system. Plasma torpedoes, he explained. They can punch through any armor the Vorthak have. Each Fury-class ship carries 500 of them. Good, Sujin said. What about the smaller ships? Wolf-class destroyers are designed for pack hunting. Fast, maneuverable, and they work together to take down bigger targets. We're building them even faster than the battleships. Sujin looked at the production reports. The numbers were staggering. In 18 months, humanity had built more warships than some species built in centuries. But it wasn't just about quantity. The new human ships were better than anything in the galaxy. Why are our ships so much more advanced? She asked. Because we had to start from scratch, Lim explained. Other species have been using the same designs for thousands of years. They never needed to improve, but we knew we were fighting an enemy with better technology, so we had to be creative. The human ships used new tactics, too. Instead of the traditional big ship battles that other species preferred, humans designed their fleet for swarm attacks. Many small, fast ships working together could destroy much larger enemies. Colonel Heiwan showed Sujin the combat simulations. Human fleet formations moved like schools of fish or flocks of birds. They were beautiful to watch and deadly to face. Each ship's computer is connected to every other ship, she explained. They think together, fight together, and win together. What do the alien advisors think? Sujin asked. They're scared, Heiwan admitted. Not of the Vorthak, of us. They've never seen anything like this. Sujin understood their concern. In 18 months, humanity had gone from peaceful farmers to the strongest military force in the galaxy. It was a transformation that amazed even humans themselves. But Sujin remembered why they were doing this. She thought about her brother, Hyunwoo, who had only wanted to grow food and raise families on a distant world. She thought about the children who had died at New Eden and all the other innocent people the Vorthak had murdered over the centuries. The war machine was almost ready. 700,000 ships of all sizes, 50 million trained soldiers, weapons and armor and supplies for a war that might last years. It was the largest military force any species had ever assembled. President Shin visited the main shipyard for the final inspection. He walked through the vast halls where the last ships were being completed. Workers stopped their jobs to cheer as he passed. "Are we ready?" he asked Sujin. She looked at the endless rows of warships, each one built by human hands, crewed by human volunteers, and aimed at the hearts of the aliens who thought humans were weak. "Yes, sir. We're ready." "Then let's go remind the galaxy that human children are not acceptable targets." The great fleet began to move. 700,000 ships leaving the safety of human space, carrying with them the fury of an entire species. The Vorthak had wanted to teach humans about strength and weakness. They were about to get a lesson they would never forget. War Prime Kitos stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the sensor readings with confusion. The numbers didn't make sense. His officers kept rechecking their equipment, but the results were always the same. 700,000 ships? He asked again. "Yes, War Prime," his sensor officer replied nervously. "The human fleet is massive." Kitos laughed, but it sounded forced. "Impossible. Humans are weak. I proved that when I destroyed their pathetic colony. They probably filled their fleet with cargo ships to make themselves look strong. But deep down, he was worried. The Vorthak had ruled this part of the galaxy for 1,000 years because they were strong and their enemies were weak. If the humans weren't weak anymore, what did that mean? "How many ships do we have ready?" he asked his tactical officer. 50,000, War Prime. The finest ships in the hegemony. Good. We'll crush these humans quickly and show the galaxy what happens when inferior species challenge us. Fleet Admiral Sujin Park watched the Vorthak fleet form up in the distance. 50,000 ships, each one larger and more heavily armed than most human vessels. A year ago, this enemy fleet would have been unstoppable. Today, it was just the first target. "Remember the plan," she broadcast to her fleet. "We're not here to prove we're strong. We're here to make sure they never hurt innocent people again." Captain Inho Seo commanded the first attack group. 100,000 ships under his control, all moving with perfect coordination. His tactical officer, Yoon-ji Kim, was only 25 years old, but she had designed the battle plan they were about to use. "The Vorthak are forming a traditional battle line," Yunji reported. Big ships in front, smaller ones behind. Each ship fights alone. Perfect, Inho said. Execute Wolfpack Formation 7. The human fleet scattered like leaves in the wind. To the Vorthak, it looked like the humans were running away in panic. Kato smiled with satisfaction. See, they know they cannot face us in honest battle. Prepare to pursue and destroy them. But the humans weren't running. They were hunting. The first Vorthak ship to die never saw it coming. 20 human destroyers appeared from different directions at once, their plasma torpedoes tearing through, its armor like paper. Before the alien crew could react, their ship was a cloud of burning gas. "What happened?" Kitos demanded. "The humans!" "They attacked together," his officer stammered. 20 ships focusing on one target. Cowards, face us with honor. But honor wasn't what the humans were interested in. They were interested in winning, and they were very good at it. The second Vorthak ship lasted 30 seconds longer. The third ship tried to run, but was surrounded by fast human ships that struck from all sides. One by one, the great Vorthak battle line began to crumble. Vorthak General Thexmore commanded the defense of their border systems. He had been confident that his ships could stop any human attack. Now he watched in horror as his forces were torn apart by an enemy that fought unlike anything he had ever seen. "They don't fight like warriors," he told his staff. "They fight like animals hunting in packs." "Should we retreat?" asked his second-in-command. "Retreat? We are Vorthak. We do not retreat from inferior species." But even as he said it, Thexmore knew they were in trouble. The humans didn't care about individual combat or proving their strength. They cared only about destroying their enemies as efficiently as possible. Captain Inho watched the battle from his command ship. His screens showed the positions of every human and Vorthak vessel in the system. The humans moved like a living thing, flowing around strong points and striking at weak ones. "Yunji, what's our loss rate?" he asked. 47 ships destroyed, 15 damaged, she replied. "Vorthak losses are over 3,000 ships." Inho felt satisfaction, but no joy. Each human ship that died meant families back home would grieve. But each Vorthak ship they destroyed meant fewer aliens who could hurt innocent people. "Continue the attack," he ordered. War Prime Kitos couldn't believe what he was seeing. His mighty fleet, the pride of the Vorthak military, was being destroyed by creatures he had dismissed as weak. Worse, the humans weren't even being cruel about it. They targeted military ships only, avoiding any vessels that might carry civilians. "Why don't they attack our support ships?" he asked. "Unknown? War Prime? Perhaps it's a trap?" But Katos was beginning to understand something terrible. The humans weren't showing mercy because they were weak. They were showing mercy because they were strong enough to choose their targets. That was the most frightening thing of all. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Vorthak fleet was gone. 50,000 ships reduced to space debris. The human fleet had lost less than 500 vessels. "Broadcast on all frequencies," Admiral Sujin ordered. Her message went out to every Vorthak ship and station in the system. "This is Fleet Admiral Sujin Park of the Human Defense Force. Your War Prime Kitos murdered 50,000 innocent people at New Eden Colony. We are here to make sure that never happens again." She paused, looking at the image of Kitos on her screen. The alien looked shocked and afraid. "We will give you one chance to surrender. Any Vorthak military personnel involved in attacks on civilian populations will face trial. Any Vorthak civilians will be protected and allowed to live in peace. This is your only warning." Katos cut the transmission, but not before Sujin saw the fear in his eyes. "Good. Let him be afraid. Let all the Vorthak leaders be afraid. Fear might make them think twice before hurting innocent people." The news of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light. Other alien species watched the broadcasts in amazement. The humans had destroyed a major Vorthak fleet without breaking a sweat. On the Kalari homeworld, Prime Minister Velthari called an emergency meeting. "Did you see the battle recordings?" she asked her advisors. "Yes, Prime Minister. The humans fought perfectly. Every ship knew exactly what to do. And they showed mercy to civilian vessels. Yes, they could have destroyed everything, but they chose to protect the innocent." Velthari felt hope for the first time in years. Maybe finally someone was strong enough to stop the Vorthak reign of terror. Back in Vorthak space, Supreme War Leader Vex Thule received reports from the disaster at the border. He read them twice, unable to believe what had happened. Ketos was defeated? Completely? Yes, Supreme War Leader. The human fleet moved like nothing we've ever seen. They fought as one mind with 700,000 bodies. Vex Thule felt cold inside. The Vorthak had ruled through fear and strength for a millennium. But what if someone else was stronger? Mobilize the full fleet, he ordered. Every ship we have. If the humans want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget. But even as he gave the orders, Vex Thule wondered if the Vorthak were the ones. Who would do the forgetting? The humans had just announced to the galaxy that the age of Vorthak dominance was over, and they had done it in the most human way possible, by protecting the innocent while destroying those who threatened them. The real war was just beginning. Supreme War Leader Vex Thule had never felt fear before. For 800 years, he had been the most dangerous warrior in Vorthak space. He had conquered dozens of species and never lost a battle. But as he looked at the reports from the border, systems! His hands shook. 3 more systems have fallen, his intelligence officer reported. The humans are advancing on all fronts simultaneously. How is that possible? No species has enough ships to attack everywhere at once. The humans do, Supreme War Leader. Their fleet is larger than anything we've ever faced. Vex Thule studied the tactical displays. Red markers showed human fleets, advancing through Vorthak space like a spreading disease. Every time his forces tried to stop them, the humans simply sent more ships. It seemed impossible. Bring me our scientists, he ordered. I want to understand how they fight. Vorthak researcher Ketnos had been studying the human attack patterns for weeks. What he had learned terrified him more than any enemy weapon. Supreme War Leader, the humans don't fight like any species we know, he explained. Each of their ships is connected to all the others. They think as one mind but move as many bodies. That's impossible. No brain can control 700,000 ships. Not one brain, Supreme War Leader. Hundreds of thousands of brains, all working together. Their computers help them coordinate, but the real strength is in their cooperation. Vex Thule felt sick. The Vorthak way was individual strength. Each warrior proved his worth by defeating enemies in single combat. But the humans had found a way to combine their individual strengths into something greater. What about their weapons? Superior. 2 hours in every way. Their plasma torpedoes can penetrate our best armor. Their ships are faster and more maneuverable. But that's not the worst part. What's the worst part? They learn from every battle. Each time we use a tactic, they adapt to counter it. They're getting better at killing us. Admiral Sujin Park stood on the bridge of her flagship watching another Vorthak system fall to human forces. The aliens had tried to make a stand at the industrial world of Vorthak Prime 7, but their defense had lasted only 4 hours. Casualty report, she requested. 86 human ships lost, Captain Sang-Wook Han reported. Estimated Vorthak. Losses exceed 15,000 vessels. Sujin nodded. The numbers were always in humanity's favor now. The Vorthak fought bravely, but they fought as individuals against an enemy that moved as one organism. Any civilian casualties? She asked. None, Admiral. Our forces followed the protection protocols perfectly. That was important to Sujin. Every human ship carried strict orders. Protect civilian populations, destroy only military targets, and show mercy to those who surrendered. They were not here for conquest or revenge. They were here to stop the Vorthak from ever hurting innocent people again. Psychological warfare. Specialist Moon Young Lee joined Sujin on the bridge. She had been developing new tactics to break Vorthak morale. The broadcasts are working, Moon Young reported. Before each battle, we transmit the names and faces of everyone killed at New Eden. It's having a psychological effect on their forces. Good or bad? Sujin asked. Both. Some Vorthak are becoming more desperate and fighting harder, but others are starting to question why they're fighting at all. We're getting surrender requests from individual ships. Sujin was glad to hear it. Every Vorthak who surrendered was one less enemy they had to kill, and one less family that would grieve. Keep broadcasting the names, she ordered. Let them remember what this war is really about. Captain Sang-wook led the deep strike missions into the heart of Vorthak space. His fast ships moved ahead of the main fleet, hitting supply depots and communication centers. The missions were dangerous, but they were crippling the Vorthak war effort. "Target acquired," his navigator announced. "Vorthak supply station, heavily defended." "Standard attack pattern," Sang-wook ordered. "Hit the military targets, avoid the civilian areas." His ships moved like hunting wolves, appearing from hyperspace, at different points around the station. The Vorthak defenders tried to respond, but they couldn't coordinate their defense fast enough. In 20 minutes, the station's military facilities were destroyed, and its civilian sections were untouched. "Any casualties?" Sang-wook asked. "None among the civilians. Vorthak military losses are total." Sang-wook felt satisfaction but no joy. He remembered the children who had died at New Eden. Every Vorthak military facility they destroyed was a step toward justice for those children. Meanwhile, other alien species watched the war with growing amazement and fear. The humans were proving unstoppable, but they were also showing a level of restraint that surprised everyone. On the Kalari homeworld, military analysts studied the human battle recordings. "Look at this," one of them said, pointing to a display. "The humans could have destroyed this entire Vorthak colony in minutes. Instead, they spent hours carefully targeting only the military installations." "Why would they do that?" asked another analyst. "Because they're not trying to commit genocide. They're trying to stop it." Prime Minister Velthari listened to the discussion with interest. The humans were rewriting the rules of galactic warfare. They fought with overwhelming force but showed mercy to the helpless. It was a combination that no one had seen before. "What does this mean for us?" she asked. "It means the humans are becoming the strongest species in the galaxy. But unlike the Vorthak, they might actually be trustworthy." Back in Vorthak space, Supreme War Leader Vex Thule was running out of options. His fleets were being destroyed faster than they could be replaced. His supply lines were in ruins. Worst of all, some of his own people were starting to surrender rather than fight. "We need to try different tactics," he told his staff. "What do you suggest, Supreme War Leader?" "Biological weapons. If we can't defeat their ships, we'll attack their worlds." Researcher Ketnos looked horrified. "Supreme War Leader, that would be genocide. Just like what we did to dozens of species over the centuries," Vex Thole finished. "Yes, and it worked every time. But when the Vorthak tried to use biological weapons against human colonies, they learned another lesson about their enemies. Human medical technology was far more advanced than they had realized. The diseases that should have killed millions were cured within days. Worse, the biological attack made the humans even more determined. Ships that had been advancing steadily began moving faster. The measured advance became a flood of metal and fury. "They're not slowing down," reported a Vorthak fleet commander. "If anything, they're getting faster." "Impossible," Vex Thule replied. "We just attacked their civilians. They should be falling back to defend their worlds." "They're not, Supreme War Leader. They're leaving small defense forces at their colonies and sending everything else toward us." Vex Thule finally understood what he was facing. The humans weren't just fighting a war. They were conducting an extermination campaign against anyone who threatened civilians. The biological attack hadn't weakened their resolve. It had confirmed that the Vorthak were exactly the kind of enemy that needed to be stopped. "How long until they reach our core systems?" he asked. 6 months, Supreme War Leader. Maybe less. "And our remaining fleet strength?" 40% of original capacity, and falling daily." Vex Thule looked at the strategic display. Red markers showing human fleets covered half of Vorthak space now. The advance was unstoppable, inevitable, and terrifying in its precision. The humans had proven something that shook the foundation of Vorthak society. They had shown that cooperation could beat individual strength, that mercy could coexist with power, and that the strong had a responsibility to protect the weak. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Vorthak were learning what it felt like to be the weak ones. And they were discovering that humans showed mercy to the weak, but no mercy at all to those who hurt children. The Vorthak homeworld had never seen an enemy fleet in its skies. For 1,000 years, it had been the center of an empire built on fear and strength. Now, 700,000 human ships surrounded the planet like a metal storm cloud, and the age of Vorthak dominance was over. Supreme War Leader Vex Thule stood in his command center, looking at displays that showed the complete collapse of his military. Less than 10,000 Vorthak ships remained, scattered across their territory and cut off from each other. The humans had systematically destroyed everything else. "We could try one last battle," suggested his tactical officer. "With what?" Vex Thule replied bitterly. "They have 70 ships for every one of ours. It would be suicide." "Then we die with honor." Vex Thule almost laughed. "Honor? We're the species that murders children and calls it strength. What honor is there in that?" For the first time in his long life, the Vorthak leader was seeing his own people clearly. They had built their empire by attacking the weak and defenseless. They had called it strength. But the humans had shown them what real strength looked like. Admiral Sujin Park received the surrender transmission while reviewing casualty reports. Human losses had been remarkably light throughout the war, less than 3,000 ships total. Vorthak losses were estimated at over 400,000 vessels. It hadn't been a war so much as an execution. "They want to discuss terms," her communications officer reported. "Patch them through," Sujin ordered. Vex Thule's face appeared on the main screen. He looked older than his years, broken by the weight of defeat. "I am Supreme War Leader Vex Thule of the Vorthak Hegemony," he said. "I wish to discuss surrender terms." "There are no terms," Sujin replied. "Unconditional surrender only. All military forces will lay down their weapons. All war criminals will be turned over for trial. All civilian populations will be protected." "And if we refuse?" Sujin's expression didn't change. "Then we'll continue until every Vorthak military asset in the galaxy is destroyed. Your choice." Vex Thule was quiet for a long moment. "What guarantee do we have that you won't simply exterminate us all?" "You have the guarantee of our actions," Sujin replied. "In 18 months of war, human forces have not harmed a single Vorthak civilian. We could have destroyed your homeworld when we arrived. Instead, we're talking." It was true, and Vex Thule knew it. The humans had shown a level of restraint that no Vorthak commander would have managed. They were stronger than the Vorthak, but they were also better. "I surrender," he said quietly. "The Vorthak hegemony surrenders unconditionally. President." Minho Shin arrived at the Vorthak homeworld 2 weeks later to oversee the transition. He brought with him not armies of occupation, but teams of doctors, engineers, and teachers. The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity began helping their former enemies rebuild. "Why are you helping us?" asked Vorthak civilian leader Morket. She had been elected to represent her people in the post-war government. "Because that's what strong people do," President Shin replied. "They protect those who can't protect themselves. That includes former enemies who are no longer a threat." The trials of Vorthak, where criminals began on a neutral world, with judges from dozens of different species. War Prime Kitos, the destroyer of New Eden, was the first to face justice. "You murdered 50,000 innocent people," the chief judge told him. "Men, women, and children who had never threatened you or your people. How do you answer these charges?" Kitos looked at the families of New Eden's victims who had come to witness the trial. Their faces showed pain, but also something else. A desire for justice, not revenge. "I am guilty," he said simply. "I thought strength meant killing the weak. I was wrong." The trials lasted 6 months. Some Vorthak leaders were sentenced to life in prison. Others, like Kitos, chose a different path, working to rebuild the worlds their empire had destroyed. It was a new kind of justice that impressed the watching galaxy. Meanwhile, the former Vorthak Empire was being transformed. Human administrators worked with local populations to establish democratic governments. Species that had been enslaved by the Vorthak were freed and given their own worlds to govern. Dr. So Young Kim, now director of the Galactic Health Initiative, established medical centers on every former Vorthak world. She had survived New Eden's destruction only because she had been visiting Earth when the attack happened. Now she worked to make sure such tragedies never happened again. "Healthcare should be a right, not a privilege," she told her staff. "Every sentient being deserves medical care regardless of their species or past actions." The transformation wasn't just physical, it was philosophical. The galaxy had seen that overwhelming military power could coexist with mercy and justice. Other species began copying human tactics and human values. Captain Do Hyun Song, the man who had discovered New Eden's destruction, was given command of the rebuilt colony. He stood where Governor Hyun-woo Park's office had been, watching new buildings rise from the ashes. "Will it be the same?" asked his assistant. "No," Song replied. "It will be better. This time we know we're not alone in the galaxy, and we know that good people will stand up to protect the innocent." The memorial to New Eden's victims was built on a hill overlooking the new capital city. The names of all 50,000 dead were carved in black stone, along with a simple message: "They thought we were weak because we chose peace. They learned that humanity's greatest strength is knowing when peace ends and justice begins." Fleet. Admiral Soo-jin Park visited the memorial on the 5th anniversary of the war's end. She was older now, her hair gray from the stress of command. But her eyes were peaceful for the first time in years. "Do you think they would be proud?" asked her aide, looking at the memorial. "I think they would be glad," Soo-jin replied. "Glad that their deaths meant something. Glad that no other children will suffer what they suffered." The Galactic Council had been reformed with human leadership. President Shin had become the first Secretary General of the new organization, dedicated to preventing genocide and protecting civilian populations throughout the galaxy. "We've learned something important," he told the assembled delegates from hundreds of worlds. "Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of justice, and justice requires strength, the strength to protect those who cannot protect themselves." The human fleet had been reduced from 700,000 ships to 200,000, still the largest force in the galaxy, but now dedicated to peacekeeping rather than conquest. They patrolled the space lanes, stopping pirates and protecting trade routes. They responded to natural disasters and helped struggling colonies. "Are we the galaxy's police force now?" asked Admiral Woo-jin Kang, who had become the supreme commander of Galactic Defense Forces. "We're the galaxy's guardians," President Shin replied. "And that's exactly what we should be." The Vorthak, meanwhile, had become some of humanity's strongest allies. The younger generation, educated in human schools and raised with human values, rejected their ancestors' philosophy of strength through domination. Morket's daughter, Kaylin, became the first Vorthak to graduate from a human military academy. She served on mixed species crews, fighting alongside the descendants of people her species had once tried to exterminate. "Why did you join the human fleet?" a reporter asked her. "Because they showed us what real strength looks like," she replied. "Not the power to destroy, but the power to protect." 10 years after the war, the galaxy was a different place. Trade flourished under human protection. Scientific cooperation had advanced technology by centuries. Wars between species had become almost unthinkable. But the most important change was in how the galaxy thought about strength and weakness. The old way, where the strong dominated the weak, was seen as primitive and shameful. The new way, where the strong protected the weak, became the standard that all civilizations try to meet. On New Eden, children played in parks built over the graves of their predecessors. They learned about Earth and the stars, about cooperation and justice, about the responsibility that came with strength. And in the night sky above them, the lights of human ships kept watch, a reminder that somewhere in the universe, there were people who believed that children should be safe, that the weak deserved protection, and that true strength was measured not by who you could destroy, but by who you chose to save. The Vorthak had tried to teach humanity about the law of the jungle, that the strong survived and the weak perished. Instead, humanity had taught the galaxy something better. That civilization meant the strong had a duty to help the weak survive and thrive. It was a lesson the galaxy would never forget.